Thanks for staying with us. So, actually got so many messages on the show. People asking us to go back to the issue of spiritual manipulation because people felt that it was an important topic to talk about. And Tokwe had guided us earlier, helping us to understand that it has actually destroyed many homes. And it's, but Christians will tell you that there are times where God actually speaks. But sometimes, some people, and I don't want us to use pastors again, because it's almost as we are bashing pastors, religious leaders might be a better word to use, a better phrase to use. Religious leaders somehow manipulate people sometimes to do certain things, and they make it look as if they heard from God. I have a message here from Caroline Ibiwoye. She said that the truth is both Christians and Muslims are practicing African religion by consulting with clerics and clergy. For our ancestors were used to consulting with Ifa, Shango, and the likes. Such practice was brought into Christianity, and that's why Christianity and Islam, and that's why we do that. So we feel that until we consult, you know, it's part of our Africanness, our African religion. You know how your forefathers, you have to consult with Ifa. So with that same mentality, we've brought it with Africanized religion, such that we must consult. But if you want to argue against that, you say the Bible also encourages you to call the elders when there are issues, when there are problems. You call the elders, you call people to, you know, you go to the man of God for guidance. That's what they are there for. They've been given a gift to guide and direct. So where do we therefore draw the line between where you actually have guidance from your imam or from your religious leader versus when you're being manipulated? Because we do see there is manipulation, whether we like to believe it or not. In many instances, there are. But in many instances, it's actually God speaking through these men of God.
I met a single man that said that the day he hears a lady that is dating say, my pastor closes the relationship. Because he feels that he does not want to enter the same place where his mom still is, according to him. His mom spent all her life going from pastor to pastor, mountain to mountain, and all her savings is always being used to sow seed from one project to another. And so he doesn't want to marry anyone overly spiritual, according to him. Just know God. I mean, overly religious, that be spiritual, don't be in that pastor thing. I didn't really understand it until recently. A friend went through a staff's phone and found out some things and how it is subtle, you know, how some religious leaders in a subtle way build dependency on them as the vehicle to God, so that when you make mistakes, they will come across like, you should have come to meet me before you bought that land. It's a subtle way. What does that mean? Does that mean that every time, if I want to do anything, I must come and meet you? If I don't come and meet you, it will not work out well. Those are spiritual manipulation. And they are coming in different ways. We must train ourselves to be able to understand where somebody is being quoting the Bible or trying to manipulate us into being dependent on them.
It's a difficult conversation to have because I am from the... we're all Christians and we're all at different levels. And I always believe that, you know, it's always important to have spiritual guidance in certain things. Although me personally, I might not go and greet my pastor. I don't know my pastor. I've never entered his house. I have one that I go to see him. But there is, I don't think we should look at it as we're being manipulated. Maybe it is us looking at it as manipulation. It could be guidance, but you must also understand that even if you get a guidance from a man, you must align it with what you've read in the Word. And it must be such that even you make your own independent decision. So you're not making a decision on something because this man of God said, but you're making a decision based on your understanding. However, he has helped you to see options. The same way counselors, they'll say, we will not tell you what to do, but we'll show you the various options available. You pick. So whatever decision you make, you therefore trust that God will direct your steps. But should we therefore now say that I'm manipulating because I want you to come back? Where I will agree on manipulation, because I have seen one which I've shared here on phone, where I met a man of God who I know personally. This man, I don't know him, we're not more friends anymore. But there was a time me and this person were friends where he was so excited. I'm sure he's watching. He's not going to kill me. He was excited because there was a state that either he's from. He was excited that he knows the commissioner. hey, that you know, somebody that
entered money.
This person just became a commissioner. I don't enter that. I'm going to call him tomorrow, and I'll tell him he must not enter that office because I must go and pray, you know. So for him, he was already thinking of the possibilities of how I can milk this commissioner, because I'm going to tell him to pray on that seat. After we pray, we must sanctify the entire office because of all the demons that I've covered, you know. So he felt it was this is money-making time for him. He was really excited. When I saw it, I'm like, oh my Lord. So that happens.
Yeah, that happens.
But we shouldn't mix it up with the real ones.
But if I'm to talk about my own personal Christian spiritual journey, I can't relate to people who insist on talking to a daddy, insist on talking to an overseer, insist on getting a pastor's opinion on everything that they do. Personally, that's not the sort of Christianity that I practice. That was not the kind of Christianity that I was raised on, you know. So I've always been told that your Christianity is about your personal relationship with God. Like, who else apart from God and Jesus Christ that can hear you, who understands you more than he? They said you know, and then I also know that this God has his thoughts towards me of good and not of evil. And I don't trust human beings, you know, to that extent. So I just never, I don't see it as Christian. Personally, when people do that, I don't see it as Christianity. I just see it as someone said to you, taking a traditional method of doing religion and bringing it into Christianity. So if I don't have that, so if I were to meet someone or get married to someone, or even before I get married to someone who shows that sort of dependence on a spiritual person, it will be a red flag for me. But I have been described as not being spiritual enough because of that behavior. I've been described as not being in tune with God at that level. I've been told that because I don't have a spiritual mentor, some things are not happening for me the way it's happening for that person who has that spiritual mentor. But I've decided this is what works for me. I'm okay. But then I also find it weird that people who are in church, who have always held on to that spiritual mentorship and everything, when it now comes to maybe their homes or some other personal issues, they want to fight it. I'm like, but you have done this. This is the principle you followed all your life. Why is it on this particular issue is so close to home, you are now fighting it? So I don't get that. But for me, I've always been
come to you, Damola,
myself and my God.
Okay, let me take Mr. Kilani first. Mr. Kilani, thanks for calling.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Go ahead, sir.
What happens is that you should know the kind of pastor that a pastor is. You understand? Pastors are there to guide us, but we need to know the type of man he is. There is no way we don't need pastors. They're very important. Some of us, before we get to marry, they can't tell us, and they put us on so many things. So we have fake pastors, quite all right. But you need to know who your pastor is. Do you understand? That's just my own take. Thank you.
Let me come to you, Damola, because where do you therefore put when you hear testimonies? You know, when I went to this person, that's when you had babies. When God prayed to this person, there was a million baby man back then, you know, and you know, there are certain things you want, and you're like, the anointing is this place, so you know, and there's really nothing wrong in saying, okay, this place for deliverance. If you're having spiritual issues, this is the place you go to. If you're looking for prosperity, this is where you go to, because everybody has a different anointing. But you see, when you now go to a place where they said, after I went to speak to pastor and he laid his hands and this happened, that is the testimony we live for. And based on that testimony, we are able to trust that he will do ours. So if we now want to interpret that as manipulation, where do we therefore put the Christianity that we act like we serve?
Well, for me, we are not denying the fact that we have a God. Our God is supernatural, he's powerful, and there are some people who actually enjoy this grace of speaking over other people. I mean, they enjoy the grace more than other people do. But then we are also higher beings. God did not make us to... We out of all the creations that God made, we are the highest. And he has put us in charge of everything, plants, animals, and everything. So we also have that grace to pray to him, study the word, and get that message from him. I think why most people, the ones who actually think, oh, their spiritual leader is everything, is because they cannot think for themselves. They cannot make decisions by themselves. We're not saying do not seek or don't have a relationship with your spiritual father, but there should be boundaries. For example, I would like to cite this Tope Alabi story. It happened years back. I think
Janako?
Yeah, she had a pastor that was her spiritual leader, Pastor Janako. And when they decided to leave the church, there were stories, according to the man, the musician, that's Tope Alabi, was trying to woo him to bed, was trying to sleep with him. And they were saying that the story wasn't true because they just left the church because I think they were changing locations and everything. But then all of these stories were conjured against it. That is what is called spiritual manipulation. When your pastor says that for you to be able to get this contract, you have to sow this 34 million naira, this is that. You have to sow it.
That happens.
Yeah. God is not. Yeah, God is not telling you. God does not. You don't have to bribe God to get any blessing from him. Fine, you can sow. You can, improve. Yeah, you can sow in church.
Let me take this call. I'll come to you, Mariam.
Not say by force.
He has been holding for a minute from Abuja. Thanks for calling EA.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I enjoy your program.
Thank you.
I've been waiting, trying. So just like what you are saying, like me now, when I get it, I don't know because of my background, but I'm from Morolean background. So there's a job I got, and you need to collect notes to go and give to whoever you want to give for you to get that job. And there is a church I visited in Abuja, and the man of God was teaching about when you are having challenge about the first fruit of a thing. I don't have the ideas then. When I get to that office, then the lowest person among them. So when I said, who gives you no? I said, no. And I remember that preaching of that man of God. He said, when you are having challenges, challenge God with your first fruit. So, just like that, and I say, God, when you give me this job, I will give you my first fruit every January. And the thing is causing trouble in my life now that when maybe January ending, if I want to bring my first fruit out, I already made provision towards that December. But I'm having issues. Even this week, out of pressure, I refuse to give it out. So I said, am I doing the right thing or I'm doing the wrong thing? Please advise me.
I'm not the one that will put.
I didn't get the question.
He said he was going to. He came to Abuja. She didn't have any connection in Abuja, and she was trying to get a job. So she attended a church, and the pastor advised that you can, if you make a commitment to God that you will give first fruit, that it can trigger the blessing on your life. Yeah. So she went to apply for the job and told God that if God gives her that job, she was going to be giving her first fruit every January of every year to church. And she has been doing it, but it's causing problems now. How? That even though when she makes preparation for it, I think she's married, and they have more responsibilities, and she's still having to commit that first fruit every January at the end of the month to church. So she's asking us to advise her if she should continue giving first fruit or she should not.
Okay, let me try.
I know you've been there too.
I've been there. Let me try to share my own story. You see, there's sacrificial if you choose to sacrifice yourself, and that sacrifice between you and God, and you make that decision. It doesn't concern anybody.
Or the pastor.
It's between nobody, between you and God. That happened. In my own Morayo Afolabi Brown's case, there was a year that I was depressed for 1.5 years. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I was I've shared this story on this show before, where things were difficult for us in the house to feed. Things were really hard and down for us. Finally, after managing with mommy, just some money here and there, I finally got a job. It was this man I think I had a Good Ultimate Search, one of those major reality shows where I had to go with them for 90 days. And I was I started production on that project. My first money, they paid me 420,000 naira, bam. That very first money. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, I was broke. But guess what? I sold it. I handed it all over. After that job, after that sewing, I got a job at High TV. That's when I prayed. I got a job at High TV. From High TV, I was poached from High TV to TVC. From TVC, I started Your View. And so everybody has their story. We can all do different testimonies. So you can say you did your own and nothing happened. That's between you and God. But everybody has their own personal. So you cannot, because of your own, negate what happened to me. I had my own personal story. So we are all different.
So that
But you're not doing like every January
no, it does not
first
matter.
fruits. For her, she's saying that she's doing every...
You
No,
decide.
what-
Any advice?
No, if I do,
if you're already feeling burdened to give it, there's a
don't.
problem.
Yes, you don't.
Because if you want to give,
It should
yes,
go.
it's a sacrifice. You've already made up your mind. I'm
God
giving
loves
it.
a cheerful giver.
Yes, but when you're already feeling like conflicted, you're planning, how will I give this money now? And my husband, how am I going to, should I give it? Should I? Since you're asking for human advice, then it means that your spirit has left it. And when your spirit has left it, you cannot get the spiritual blessing that should come from it. That's my own opinion. So you might need to think about it and ask yourself again. It's like the issue of tithing. Some people don't. They say, I'm not doing that 10%. Innocent. They know it's not their own. They don't believe in it. Some will say they were doing before, they stopped, they feel like the blessing stopped. Some are saying they are wondering where their result is, where this result is not coming. Because we are giving with expectation that something will come. You know, we've turned this spiritual giving into a transaction with God.
So I'm listening to software, right? And it's clear that there's no one way to do it. And so how do you tell one person that what you're doing is manipulation and what you are doing is spiritual soul? Since God does not use one way to do it. So why is it that someone has come here and said, you know, every time I give my January salary, this is what happens, and I believe it, and God blesses me.
Yeah.
And another person is doing the same thing, and you call that one aside and said you are being manipulated. How do you do that? The truth is, right, when it comes to spirituality,
that is a carnal mind.
It is about that person. And it's not meant for all of us around that person to find it easy or to find it acceptable or to understand it. It's a personal journey with that person. Sometimes some of this calling will put you up against loved ones. We have some pastors who will tell you that when they started their journey and they were called. In fact, let me give you a story. I have an uncle who is a pastor. And I remember a letter my mom wrote him one time when he had asked for money. And this was a man that decided he's been to university and everything and decided, you know, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to, you know, I'm serving God with my everything. And he was working. And you know, with churches, sometimes when you start off as junior pastor, you don't really get paid much. So things were tough for him. And my mom sent him a letter that, as far as she's concerned, she thought he was being lazy. He should get up and work and get a job. After all, Paul was working and serving God. Today, he's doing well. He has given his life to the ministry, and he's doing well today. It looked like it was not a calling. No one thought it was a calling. You that we know, how did God call you? You know? And so that's why we cannot necessarily say to another person, this, what you're doing is you are being manipulated. But we will teach people, or we hope that they learn, you know, from everyone else.
To be discerning.
Yes, to be discerning. And and in the Bible, I know that prayer is put on us, on individuals. It does not say that we should go to someone to learn the discernment spirit. It does not say listen to the opinions of others to learn that discerning spirit. It's that you come to him and ask that he gives you wisdom and discernment. So that's how
I have to wrap up. Let me let Damola. You want to jump in here?
In fact, that was my point. Ask God for wisdom and knowledge. There's a place for spirituality, but also do not let that spiritualism get you manipulated. Okay. So please.
Okay.
So my final opinion is that it is spiritual manipulation when somebody is controlling what you're doing. It's not God. It's not that you're hearing from God, but somebody outside is telling you this is what God is saying. If you cannot find a way to know what God is telling you, then you know you have to enter the school of how to hear from God by myself. The only way to verify that you're not being spiritually manipulated is if you have finished that school of how I hear from God by myself, then you verify what the pastor says for you. If you have not done that, you are still a baby in the journey.
And the reason why I hear you, and both of you are right in different ways. The reason why I also hear, because I've known people who have listened to God said from different people, and they've been hooked. Now their entire life is now dependent on this person. And this person too, it's not like he's flawless. He has his own issues. The man who is giving you has his own marital, family issues, but he keeps coming to anchor you to continue that dependence on him. So there are instances like that, but there are also spiritual instances, as you have described, that, listen, we are in no place to tell somebody you're being manipulated, because the truth is that there are times where you are being led by your spirit and nobody would understand it. Nobody would
you
understand.
are being led, not somebody leading you. Let God lead everybody.
God can use somebody else to lead you.
But you will confirm it from God by yourself that I should follow this person.
You will just feel it that this thing is
We
right.
have to wrap up.
I can feel it.
Hey, Joe, let's go for the weekend.
Yes!
I want to go.
I want to sleep.
That is all we have taken on this show this week. I hope you will not get in trouble with your pastors this Sunday. Have a fabulous weekend. We'll see you Monday. Bye for now.
Bye.
My pastor will be proud of me.